Good afternoon, everybody. It is October 9th, 2024 for the regular City Commission meeting. Let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Skidmore.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Kaler.
Present.
Commissioner Clayton. And Commissioner Crowley.
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Welcome everybody here in the chamber watching as well as on social media. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation by my pastor, Ottawa Bible Church, Dakota Smith.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
All right, everyone. Thank you for allowing me a brief minute to begin today's meeting. I just want to read to you a passage from Scripture, and it'll take me all but 20 seconds to do so. Romans chapter 13 speaks about the gift of governing authorities. Romans 13 verse 1 says, "Every person is to be in subjection to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and those which exist are established by God. Therefore, whoever resists authority has opposed the ordinance of God." And if you skim down later in the passage, verse 4 says, "The gift of governance is actually a minister of God to you for good." And then verse 6 even goes on to say later in this chapter, "For rulers, those who govern, are servants of God, devoting themselves to this very thing." And so I don't know if you've ever thought of this position, this role in that way, but the biblical view would seem to indicate that you all are servants of God, not just of people, but of God, to keep order and to lead people, to be a blessing to people. And then it's the job of the people, the citizens, to also be compliant, trusting, helpful with whatever is needed from you all for the sake of your service. And so it's kind of like that double-sided coin of you're serving us and our job is to also come and to serve you. And so if I can, I'd just like to pray. Thank you again for your service. And we'll continue with the meeting. Thank you, God, for the blessing of our local government. I pray that they would see themselves as an instrument of yours, devoting themselves to the good of the people. And I also just pray that we here in Ottawa specifically would see ourselves as instruments of blessings for them. Please help us to do whatever we can to serve them and to be compliant and trusting. Thank you for today. We pray over the matters on the agenda, and we pray that these matters would serve the people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Appreciate that very much. All right, we'll go on to public comments. Do we have any signed up?
We have none registered.
None registered. Okay, we'll go on to pass item 7, go on to item 8, which would be the minutes from the October 2nd City Commission meeting. Do we have an approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go on to declaration. At this time, I'd like to give the commissioners a chance to declare any conflict or communication they've had that might influence their ability to consider today's issues impartially. I think we'll do it in one breath for the first time. How about that? Good. No concerns there. No unfinished business. We have some new business tonight. Chief Weingartner will present on how the department incorporates community policing to enhance public safety. Chief Weingartner.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and the public joining us online today. Want to speak briefly to you today about community policing, the community policing concept, and kind of how that's changed and evolved over just the last few years within the department. And the purpose for the presentation today is to give a little bit of background information as we, as the departments, the city departments, and the commission have continued and ongoing discussions about things that are beginning to impact or have visibly impacted the community most recently. So this is a good chance and a good opportunity to provide some good background information for you as you think about some of those future plans for the community and how we may respond and address those issues, specifically related to homelessness. So the mission of the Ottawa Police Department is varied, and we have some mission statements, some vision statements, some value statements that we use that the public may or may not be aware of generally, that kind of guide and direct how we do things. So the mission of the department is to protect and serve with duty, honor, integrity, trust. That duty, honor, integrity, trust is an acronym that's on our department challenge coin. It incorporates many of the values that officers have to swear by when they take the oath of office to become a police officer. And really, if you think about those terms as you go about your duties each day as a police officer, and you stay within the confines of what you think those definitions are, you'll have a really good career. You're going to do the right thing at the right time for the right reasons, and you're going to be thinking about the victims that we serve and the public that we interact with, and making sure that we deliver good service. And our vision for the city of Ottawa, with the services that we provide, is for an Ottawa where all can live safely and without fear, protected by a department with the highest ethical and professional standards. Several times a year, I get up in front of you and I speak about our crime statistics and tell you about if crime's up, crime's down. That is a very finite number. And it's easy for me to stand up here and say, we have reduced shopliftings by 60-some% in a given year. And that sounds like a really nice thing. It's a good number. We can say that certain other crime categories are up and down, but because our numbers are usually so low of those actual crime numbers, the percentage number kind of is high, right? So it's true that crime may or may not be down percentage-wise, but how does the community feel? How does the community feel when they walk down the trail? How do they feel when they go to a park or when they're walking downtown? Or if they break down in the middle of the night and it takes 10 or 15 minutes for an officer to get there? And that's where living without fear comes into play, because we want the community to not only understand that we address crime, but that we're here to support them before the crimes occur. So our goal would be for a department to be fearless of crime in the community. And the way we do that is through our interactions outside of them being a victim of a crime. And that's where the community policing concept and approach comes into play. It's having every interaction that we can be a positive and good interaction with the citizen, even if it is during an arrest, trying to make sure we can do that. And the department does this by focusing on programs that promote community policing through our community partnerships, organizational transformation, and problem solving. And those three community partnership, organizational transformation, and problem solving categories are up there for a very specific reason, because that is the language that the Department of Justice uses in the community policing concept. So there's a COPS office. You're going to see that COPS acronym a few more times. That's community policing, community outreach policing, community-oriented policing. They all mean about the same thing. But we kind of align with what the national information is for community policing into our department, and then certainly through our organizational units. Keep hitting the wrong one. All right. So our community partnerships, those are collaborative partnerships between the department and individuals and organizations where we develop solutions to problems and increase trust in police. When we have good community trust, they come and tell us the things that we need to do to solve crimes. Whether that's through a custodial interview of somebody we're accusing of a crime, or a victim who may be hesitant to tell us exactly what happened that led to them to need to contact or call 911. Or that person who is on a traffic stop for the very first time and is worried or scared because of some of the national news they see about what happens to people on traffic stops. Alleviating that fear is important for cooperation. So our business and industry partners, we're one of many agencies and people in this room that review the special event application process that the city undertakes. With additions of some of the events that are going on, we, as the department, and certainly this city group that reviews those, we get a lot. We get tons of special event requests. There's so much that goes on in the community that the police department may actually not be involved in, but we need to be aware of. Or we like to know where somebody is hosting an event so that we can put that information out to our patrol staff and just drive by and keep an eye on it. Make sure that we're a visible deterrent, we're a visible presence, and that they know we're there if they need us. Education. The department provides school resource officers, DARE instruction to our K through 12 schools, both public and to Sacred Heart. And certainly we conduct periodic school zone patrols for our public schools, and also regular checks at Neosho County Community College and Ottawa University. that community policing concept with those is several. We teach them in our active threat instruction. We work with their staff to make sure their facilities are safe through safety evaluations, meeting with them individually, meeting with teachers one-on-one in the classroom if that's what they want us to do, so that they know what to do in the worst of the events in case we had an active shooter event. And we know those are high-value locations for those incidents because of the reports that we get from across the country. Your school systems are one of the top 3 categories for active shootings in the United States. The others include open spaces and commerce now, and healthcare are some of the other locations where those occur. Retail theft. We recently acquired a grant through Walmart specifically designed to address and reduce the number of shoplifting cases at Walmart. That was to install license plate reading technology in and around the Walmart area, specifically focused on catching people responsible for stealing from Walmart. And that has really worked and really worked well. Not only have we been able, through our partnership with Walmart, to reduce the number of shoplifting cases, but because of that technology, it's also led the identification of other crimes being committed by people who may be just passing through our community or going to our Walmart because it's close proximity to I-35, which is a corridor for travel up and down the country. So that's a great program and a great partnership that we've had with Walmart. We have a regular retail theft meeting with their loss prevention team where we discuss people who are traveling from different Walmarts to commit crimes. One great example of that technology was a recent series where a identified suspect, based on our investigation from the LPR cameras, was stealing Legos from Walmart, and you wouldn't think that sounds like a lot. But in the end, that theft by that group was a six-figure loss for regional Walmarts that we tied to 4 different states. By the same crew hitting multiple Walmarts doing the same thing. And then they would sell those on like Facebook Marketplace, for example, sites similar to that where you could sell anonymously stolen property for a pretty high profit. So that's a really good example of how we do that. From the community policing aspect of that, when we're not responding to the calls at Walmart, officers regularly stop out and patrol on foot. Again, being that visible presence, visible deterrent. So hopefully what we've been able to do is, even by just doing that periodic check-in, if somebody going there thinking about committing a crime sees us, maybe that's the second thought in their mind and they just go away. That stops us. That stops Walmart loss prevention from having to do their reports. It stops our patrol officers from having to make an arrest and do a report, and then they can get back out in the community and patrol. Mental health. It's an issue we've talked about a lot in the last few years. And joining me today are members of the Community Policing Unit, Josh Schwab, our Community Police Officer, and Megan Thomas, our Crisis Co-Responder. And those 2 individuals specifically are doing impactful work in the community related to community policing at a level that I don't believe we have ever seen in the department before. Their work is tremendous and continues to be an increasing number of cases or work that they're doing each time we go out and measure that. So Josh and Megan, thank you so much for the work you do and for the heart and passion and the approach that you have to do that work. It's tough and not everyone can do it, but I can tell you I've got the right people in the right place at the right time doing that, and I'm really lucky. The department trains our officers in the first is mental health first aid, and then crisis intervention training. So that's commonly referred to CIT. The national protocol for CIT is to get that training to officers at about their 3-year mark. You want to have an experienced or limited experienced officer attend CIT so they understand kind of the things they're going to have to do out on the street. CIT helps officers understand where somebody might be actually in a crisis moment and be able to communicate them at that moment in the crisis to de-escalate the situation. All of these things related to community policing are designed toward that de-escalation. What happens when we de-escalate? That means we use less force, we injure people less, we injure our officers less, and hopefully we prevent that ultimate potential use of lethal force. And if we can do everything ahead of time to reduce that, we're all going to be better off for it. Our community partners related to mental health are, of course, the Elizabeth Layton Center, who Megan works for, but offices and really is It's directly integrated into the police department. Megan attends regularly occurring meetings with the ELC staff to talk about their clients and the caseloads that they're doing, that we're involved in, so that we make sure we can connect those people with the services from that community policing unit. And certainly specific to people in crisis. We would not be able to provide the level of service that we do without Advent Health Ottawa. That emergency room staff in particular helps us out so much. When we take somebody into our police protective custody who's in a crisis moment, somebody from ELC will evaluate them and decide if they need to be hospitalized. If they're hospitalized, they generally go to Ottawa State Hospital. Ottawa State Hospital has a waiting list most often. Since they are in police protective custody, we have to keep them in our care, custody, and control. But because of the service Advent Health provides us, is they will actually watch those people for us, which puts an officer back out on the street to go about and do their business. If Advent Health wasn't doing that for us, we would be pulling an officer off the street to sit with that person for sometimes days in a row, 24 hours a day, in our lobby, because we can't put people for mental health in a detention facility. And we don't have anywhere, a residential place to keep them and keep them safe. So the fact that Advent is willing to do this just partners with us so strongly on providing that service, and I'm really appreciative for what they do. Police accreditation. So as you've heard me mention before, we're one of just a handful of agencies in the state of Kansas that are accredited by the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. We are also one of a smaller number of agencies that have received dual accreditation through the State Police Accreditation Program. One of the benchmarks of CALI accreditation is transparency in policing, because it increases public trust and ensures consistent delivery of police services. Each year, we have an outside evaluator come in and review 25% of our policy and procedures. They look at the proofs that we have to show them. So if we have a policy about how we handcuff somebody, for example, it's written into our report, and then we have to proof that we're actually doing that. The report's a proof. A picture of our patrol car video is proof. A picture of body cam video is proof that we're actually following the policies we do that. And at the end of that 4-year cycle, somebody comes here from the CLE organization on site in Ottawa, meets with many community partners, a lot of the same people in this list that I've talked about today. And then they ride with officers, and they get out on their own and just go talk to the community. Really what we do is we invite an outsider who's going to be very critical of how we do things, and we rip a Band-Aid off and let them tell us where we need to improve. Sometimes that don't feel great, but it's necessary, and the outcome is better for everyone involved. So we do make mistakes. We're honest about those mistakes. We put practice and policy in place to correct that and hopefully not repeat that. We just completed our first year review, and the evaluator that did it is probably one of the most critical that we've had yet. And not a bad critical, but they gave us things to do more this time than in the previous 8 years that I've been involved. And some of my staff was a little bit concerned by that. I was not. I appreciated their open, honest, and transparent review of where they think we can do things better. And we're going to work over we have about another year to improve on those things that they knew. And it wasn't really anything that would be a detriment to the community or the department, but it's things that we really just need to tighten up. An example is they didn't like the way that we were documenting inspection of our holding cells for our municipal court and the holding cells in our police side. We do it, but we don't have it written down as clearly as they wanted it. So we went back, rewrote the policy, redeveloped the procedure, and now we're documenting that so there shouldn't be any concern. It's just something like those little things. And then our advocacy partnerships. The police department partners with the Willow Domestic Violence Center and the Sexual Assault and Care Center to provide advocacy for victims of domestic violence and sexual assault. Domestic violence is the #1 person crime in Ottawa. It is also likely one of the most underreported crimes anywhere. The same goes for sexual assault. We can't do our job without our advocacy partners. When we respond to a domestic violence or an assault call, we do our information report, we do our police work. We are not necessarily the best advocates in that circumstance. But we do have great people available to us 24 hours a day through a call center who can come out and respond if we need them. So partnering with ELC, partnering with Willow, partnering with the Care Center, make sure that we connect all of those underserved communities and things that we would like to do from a volunteer space. Most of those entities are just like us, limited funding, trying to do more with less, providing a service for people in their most critical time of need. To give you a little bit better understanding of how and why that works, I thought I'd include our organizational chart. Again, this is another one of those things that from a CALEA accredited organization needs to be done each year. We've had this done for a long time. When Chief Butler was here, even before we were accredited, we had this. But I think it gives you a great visual representation of what we do each day and why having each one of the bubbles up on the screen filled ensures we can deliver those services. So obviously on the top you have a chief. The way that we have it set up now, our accreditation and property manager reports directly to me, and that is also our accreditation manager for CALEA. There's two reasons for that. The accreditation manager and what CALEA refers to the chief or the sheriff as the CEO need to work hand in hand to ensure that we maintain accreditation. So in the organization chart, it's that high of a level of responsibility that it needs to rest at the top of the chart. Stacy Allen, our accreditation manager, is also our property and evidence manager. Really two full-time jobs in one position, but that's the way we have it set up right now. There are a few things that will get a police chief out of a job very quickly. Discrepancies in the property room are at the top of the list. So even though Stacy and her responsibility report to me, I have zero access unescorted into our property room. It is protected by an alarm. There is a sign in and a sign out sheet for that. We have multiple levels of approval in our computer system and our evidence packaging on how we do that. And I don't have access to any of it unless Stacy allows me to enter that room and I sign in and I sign out. So over on the left side is the patrol division, certainly the most visible and recognized part of our department. Those are the officers that are dressed in the uniforms, driving the MARC units 24 hours a day, every day of the year. And on the far right side of the chart is the investigations and support services. Within that division, that provides two specific functions. The records unit, which manages all of our police reports. They have public-facing inquiries, walk-in reports, telephone reports, online reports. They manage all of our open public records requests, send copies of all of the reports to our partners, whether that's the Department of Children's and Family Services, other law enforcement agencies, the city court, the county attorney's office, city hall, wherever those reports need to go, it comes out of the record unit. And they do all sorts of other stuff, such as enter stolen property into a national crime computer. When that property is recovered, you got to take that information back out. The same goes for arrest warrants. We don't want to have an arrest warrant in the computer system if it's been served, because if that person has contact with somebody else later, it could show a warrant exists that really doesn't. So again, you de-escalate the chance for a use of force when you accurately maintain those records all of the time. And then the detective unit. So of course, those are our staff dedicated to investigate long-term investigations, major person crimes, drug investigations. But then in the middle, and it's specific that it's in the middle of the organizational chart because it supports all sides of the agency, is our community outreach programs and services, what we refer to as the COPS division. That's led by Captain Hawkins. Captain Hawkins is our primary public information officer. He's in charge of our internal department training. He manages the special events review that I talked about and then assigns all of our staff out. So that community policing aspect includes our volunteers and police services unit who help us like on car show, tractor show, parades, homecoming, you name it. Those volunteers in our community are out there helping us man a barricade, staff a traffic control, make sure that we don't have to call an officer in to do that work. Because if that VIP squad wasn't there, sometimes we might need to do that. And then the COPS provides 2 court bailiffs for the municipal court. Also in there for our community policing is the school resource officers. I'm a DARE officer. The one that says CSO, ACO, and DARE, that's currently filled by Larrabee Alexander, who you may know. And he's another person that wears multiple hats in the organization and does so much community outreach and community policing in that role to do that. And then we have our police canine program in there, our police dog Yuri and his canine handler serving there. And also Captain Hawkins does what we call professional standards. So being open and transparent is allowing anyone who wants to come in and file a complaint against us to be investigated. No matter how small, we investigate it. We'll take a statement, we'll review it, we'll interview people that need it, we'll review body cams, car video, or whatever it is. I'm glad to report that most of those are resolved informally. So most people may not quite understand why the officers did what they did, for instance, on a traffic stop or an investigation, but through a little bit of follow-up, we're able to explain to them why we did the things that we did and able to resolve those. However, if we are unable to do that and it does become a larger matter that needs to be addressed, Captain Hawkins is tasked with investigating those for full and transparent things. We report that number of standards investigations that we complete and conduct on our CALIA report that we do annually. And also, Captain Hawkins is one of two people that's in charge of our SWAT team, the STAR team. Community policing officer and crisis co-responder are right there in the middle of that group. And again, Megan and Josh are the ones that fill that bubble and provide the service. Community outreach means that they are going to be involved in all things, whether that's patrol or investigations or people that just walk in. There are so many unique examples that the community policing unit does to help people. A recent example is several adults were located in Ottawa that were being trafficked. And I don't know how, and I don't know where Megan got it, but she had a card of a number of a person who could help. And we ensured that those people got the services that they provided and had them resourced, not in our community. We had them resourced in our community for about 2 days, but then to get them the continued resources that we really do not have in our community. And it's those things that Megan and Josh do every single day like that go unnoticed except for the people that they're helping, or if we don't address it, that you may visibly see along the trail or along the levee by some of our homelessness that is on the street. So the next slide by category is financial considerations. I just touched very briefly on this, but the agency has to devote our necessary human and financial resources to support community policing to ensure that problem-solving efforts are robust and that partnerships are sustained and effective. We tried for many years to get partner agencies to fund a crisis co-responder, but that never worked out. Chief Butler tried. He kept back and continued to try. When he left, I picked up that, and I tried as well. Well, that's when the opportunity came for the grant, which Stacey Allen wrote, and we were awarded to create the community policing unit. That was a 1-year grant. It was designed to stand the unit up. And then after that, we've been back to you each year to ask that continue to be funded, and I'm so thankful that each year so far, you've continued that. So thank you on behalf of our unit for continuing that funding. It is critical for us to be able to do that, and I know it comes at a financial cost. So we recruit, hire, and select through a rigorous hiring process that includes a physical fitness standard, multiple step selection process, including an FTO ride-along when their new applicants are going through the process to make sure that they're the right fit. We need to be the right fit for the applicant. They need to be the right fit for us. And through that vetting process, what we always try to do is come at the end and hire an employee that we believe is going to be the right fit, to adhere to the community policing approach that we have and carry that throughout all of their duties as they're here. During the chief's interview, they learn about the department's philosophy and approach to community policing and what their role is in that initiative. When you're a young officer coming in, that may be a very foreign concept to you. It may not be the top of your interest list, because honestly, a lot of people, and I was one of those when I came into policing, is more interested in kind of the 5 o'clock news highlights of policing and not the work that comes that you don't get to see. And there's way more of that than there is for those 30 seconds of the news story. And making sure they understand that from before day one and what that's going to happen every day after that and why it's so important. Professional development. The department uses a structured professional development program to allocate training dollars to accomplish department goals. Training is ongoing. Training is constant. In the state of Kansas, we are one of the states in the country that has the highest number of required training hours for law enforcement. By statute, we're required to give each officer 40 hours of in-service hours. Those in-service hours have to fall in certain categories. So, for example, you can't do 40 hours of firearms training and check that off your list. You're only limited to 20 hours of firearms training a year. So you have to make sure that you get more cross-section of training each year for each employee. And then what we try to do through that is bring our officers back and become instructors so they can continue to teach that. Our Master Police Officer program is a professional development program where officers, through a combination of years of service and specific training, classes, and certifications that we have identified, provide the service and value that we want from our staff, have a step ladder to succession planning for promotion within the organization. So that MPO rank lies between a police officer and a police sergeant. They are generally your most experienced patrol officers, your most senior patrol officers, your most mature police officers, and have dedicated themselves to the department and hopefully going to make this place their career. We have to invest and retain those folks, because if they walk out the door, we lose all that knowledge with them. And when we backfill, we start over at ground zero. And it takes a long time to build that back up. A major financial consideration is technology and equipment. Of course, salary is a large part of any organization's budget. That's no different for ours. But all of the other things that we either are required to have by policy, by practice, or by CALEA are included in those costs, and they all kind of intertwine. So I'll just use the example of a patrol car, since that all of us have a car to respond to. The community policing unit has a vehicle that they have that goes out. It's got to be equipped just like all of our other vehicles, because they're interacting with people, and we want to document that, whether they have to take enforcement action or to investigate a complaint. So the cost of a car fluctuates. Certainly the last few years has been a roller coaster for sure, and really no way to accurately target that year to year. But each of the cars, from the equipment they have, such as body cameras, the in-car video systems, the computers, and then all of the programs that all of that technology has to have in order to function correctly. That list is extremely long, and that can actually push the cost of one car to around $125,000 minimum. Now, we get a lot of years out of our vehicles, and we rotate them around. So our fleet plan is once they're on patrol and they reach certain benchmarks, they'll rotate to other people in the organization. And that way we can kind of reduce the cost and keep patrol with our newest and most mechanically reliable vehicles, because we do what's called hot seating. So that means they run 24 hours a day, generally speaking, because we don't have enough cars to shut them down and give them a rest. But when we transfer them off of the front line from that patrol and they get assigned to Josh and Megan or me or detectives, they do get an opportunity to rest, because we don't work the rotating shift work or 24-hour shifts like most of the officers do. So we do extend the life of those cars for that. And then our next page is just a snippet of a shot of a list of the community policing events that we do annually. And I started maintaining this list because my memory couldn't remember all of the things we're doing anymore, because the list is so long. But generally speaking, we attend over 30 community policing events a year. And the people that we interact with, whether that's one-on-one or us presenting to a group, is in the number of thousands of people. So each year we go out and interact with or promote the concepts that we adhere by for community policing to thousands of our community members and thousands of our regional members. And that's just part of that community policing philosophy and approach. So problem solving, that's a lot of what the COPS office does. The process of engaging in the proactive and systematic examination of identified problems to develop and evaluate effective responses. So each week the COPS team meets and they kind of go over their weekly planned activities that include assignment for foot patrols in the schools. If Megan and Josh have a particular case that they're going to work with, whether they're going to come in plain clothes or uniformed, depends on who and how and what they're going to interact with and where they're going to go. And then making sure that in specific division, they are following their kind of path of progress through our division goals and objectives to help prioritize their work. And that includes our internal department training. This week we've had two officers. One started Monday, one got back from the academy on Friday, so they're jumped right into the training program. So Captain Hawkins making sure that each of those people is assigned where they need to be, plus providing bailiffs, plus doing the other work that goes on. So we've got to have those team meetings to make sure that we're all staying on that same page. As I mentioned before, Megan attends her regularly reoccurring meetings at ELC and provides an update to their staff on what her activities are. And certainly with some of the grants that ELC has recently received, making sure that our two crisis teams are working together to provide a valuable service. POSA, Problem-Oriented Service Activity, is an acronym used by the city where we collaborate city departments to respond to a variety of issues. So we bring a whole of city response to issues. For example, if we have a series of car burglaries in a specific area of town, and we, through our investigation, find that, it's a pretty low light area, maybe we need to work with our public works department and our utilities department about doing that. If there is lots of what could be described as nuisance issues, such as junk vehicles or junk on property, we'll work with neighborhood and community services and come together. And instead of one person doing their little piece and moving on, we kind of start working together and make sure that we all can respond and solve those problems. Brian brought that program, that concept here, and the times that when we have implemented it, it's been a really good outcome and a really good response. Monthly and quarterly reports, again, through a proactive and systematic review of crime and accident data, we as the department can shift our resources as needed. An example is this. Over the course of about the last 2 weeks, internally we recognized on the east side of Ottawa from about 2nd to 7th Street an increase of calls overnight that involved people reporting people walking through their yards. Maybe a car door was left unlocked and their car went through but nothing taking. They spotted somebody on their porch on a Ring camera. Not doing no reported crimes. We didn't identify crimes, but that behavior is unusual. So by reviewing that, we directed our overnight officers to conduct more enforcement, more traffic stops, more visible deterrence over on the east side. We're going to do two things. The people who are probably casing houses or cars to commit crimes are going to see us and decide to go somewhere else. Or we're going to catch them in the act. And that's what some of that review of the monthly crime data provides for us. And we do that on the crime trends and mapping. So the community crime map, again, that link is on our website. Residents can sign up and receive alerts of crime reported in your neighborhood or where you work. It'll go to your email inbox and you get to decide if you want that daily, weekly, or monthly. And we'll show you the reported crime in that specific area. Once you get on that website, you as the user can adjust the date and time range so you can see a much longer time period of reported crime if you want to do that. And all this focuses back to courts and detention. We're here for victims. In order to serve victims, we have to hold offenders accountable. The department prioritizes our investigation based on the severity of the crime, the identification, whether that's known or not, of the offender, and the public safety. We regularly meet with prosecutors and help prepare for court cases and do annual reviews to make sure that those people who are repeat offenders or violent offenders are being addressed. And that problem solving is a collaborative effort among all of our public agencies, our private sector, and our community partners to ensure the safety for all. We ensure that the constitutional rights of all are paramount during our law enforcement operations. Understanding HIPAA, statute, case law, best practices protects the community, our police officers, and you. as the city elected officials. That's why sometimes law enforcement in its traditional role may not be the best at doing some of the things we do. In order for an officer to do certain things, if I go and talk to somebody, I have to do two things. They have to voluntarily agree to speak to me, or I have to have a legal reason to speak to them. There's no gray area in that. So understanding where our constitutional role in this is very challenging when we're dealing with people who have severe mental health issues, maybe mental health and under the influence of drugs or alcohol, puts officers in a gray area that is challenging. Megan and Josh, through that community policing approach, navigate the gray very well. And making sure that we have our civilian partner with us and the law enforcement there to act when it's needed, make sure that we adhere to those constitutional requirements so that we don't get sued and you don't get sued. And that's kind of just a very short presentation about community policing, how we approach it, and what we're going to continue to provide and hopefully build upon those services over the next period of our strategic planning. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have specific to community policing or some of those related matters.
Well, I just really appreciate the community partnerships you brought up with the hospital, with ELC, with the Willow Domestic, even Osawatomie. I just think that's such a critical partnership, like you described, to work together for the benefit of everybody. And that's something, I don't know if that's always been that way or not, but I'm glad to see those partnerships exist and continue to develop. So yeah, Josh and Megan, I certainly want to thank you for all your dedication to this department. Last week we heard about the fire department, all the things they do, more than we normally think of, and you certainly do a lot more than a lot of people think for as a police department goes. So thank you very much for that presentation. And any other questions anybody has?
I just I just had a comment. I had seen your community policing officers, Megan and Josh, at Hope House for the chamber coffee one morning, and they spoke a lot about the services they provide, also in conjunction with Hope House and community partners, and it was amazing to hear, and it was frankly shocking. So thank you both for what you do.
Yeah, and certainly I did not include every community partner that we regularly interact with.
Sure.
There would be a whole nother hour of that if we did that. But Megan and Josh working directly with Hope House and our community, kind of like when we have somebody in that police protective custody side with Advent. If we didn't have Hope House here doing the work that they're doing with us, the problems that you would visibly see would be far worse.
I like the way you ended the report so we don't get sued. I appreciate that too.
You're welcome.
I got
Yeah,
my attention real
I
fast.
appreciate that as well.
That's important for all of us. I think you're right. Okay, any other questions? Chief, good job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good
Appreciate
report. Appreciate it very much. We'll go on to our comments by city manager.
Honorable Mayor and Commission, we'll start off with some progress here on our playground project and show that work is continuing on this, and we have the containment walls in the process of being finalized, and then there's a small cure period, at which time in about 3 to 4 weeks, we'll have scheduled the pouring of the surface that was funded partially with a 50% grant from the Kansas Department of Health and Environment for the recycled tires, and it will be a press poured in place foam surface. So that is something we're excited about, and we're targeting later this month or early next. Want to highlight that this is National Customer Service Week, and as was highlighted by both our invocation and Chief Weingartner's presentation, that you on the bench and those of us here every day are serving our neighbors and the community members, and I specifically would like to highlight the folks that truly are the ones that get the work done that we don't often think of or have an opportunity to interact with, at least you, on a daily basis. And We've listed those across all of our operations from police to City Hall here. Want to remind everyone that the City of Ottawa sales tax reduction expirations occurred. Just get that word out so that our local businesses aren't collecting sales tax that won't necessarily or doesn't need to be collected. So we're making sure that that continues to get spread around, and we're spreading the word. Also, want to congratulate Officer Dylan Brown, who is our newest patrol officer, who graduated KLETC last Friday. And also want to welcome our newest employee, Master Police Officer Dallas Astle. If anyone is interested in volunteering for the community warming shelter this winter, on October 27th at 7 p.m. at the First Baptist Church, there'll be an information session for volunteer opportunities, and that will be held at the Elliott Hall, which faces Hickory Street across from Security First Title. And again, that's October 24th, starting at 7 p.m. And they anticipate a 30 to 45-minute session. Want to remind the development community for the MIH opportunities. So applications are due no later than Friday, October 18th, 2024 for inclusion into this year's upcoming round, which we've been very fortunate in receiving. I believe this will be the third opportunity for us to try and score additional outside funds to our community, and just remind folks if they're seeking opportunities that they get that in by October 18th. Want to remind everyone that this Saturday will be the fly-in breakfast for our Aviation Explorers Post 8000 out at the airfield from 8 to 10, and also there'll be a safety awareness and recruitment fair for Franklin County at the Annex parking lot on the 12th from 1 to 4. And then a couple of Main Street items we want to remind folks about: that October 26th will be a candy parade and costume contest from 10 to noon. And they'll have the costume contest at noon at Legacy Square. So we'll be able to see which of our young neighbors has the best costume, or at least the most frightful costume. And then October 12th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. will be the Sip and Shop Saturday here in Ottawa. And then we want to just point out and thank journeyman lineman Eric Heiserman and Chris Krause, who were part of the Kansas response for APPA. That was a federal mobilization, and we coordinated that through Kansas Municipal Utilities. And so in that response, we'll be serving other municipal electric utility customers, and right now they're targeting service to the citizens of Orlando, Florida. There are other Kansas communities sending crews as part of this federal response, which is Pratt, Baldwin, Russell, Clay Center, Kansas City BPU, Augusta, and Winfield. And I just want to highlight the collaborative efforts for this kind of 1-2 punch that area has received. So our crews left yesterday morning at 6:30, and they're traveling with Baldwin, and from there they'll stage just outside of the proposed track, and then once it's passed by, move in to begin work. That mobilization will be between 1 to 2 weeks. And again, because it is a federal mobilization, we're following FEMA protocol, and all of our cost will be reimbursed through that process. And this is kind of the first time that it's been a national response, but as we've seen the intensification of weather extremes, I think this is something that unfortunately is likely to become more common than not. But we are familiar enough with that reimbursement process and how to catalog and collect that. And both of our linemen who are responding went through a refresher on the documentation protocol and things like that. So we wish them well and Godspeed in their response, and appreciate them for stepping up to offer services, because I know we've responded twice this year to Eudora and Jeff, what was that second city? KC BPUs. Thank you. And so, those folks helped us most recently with our July 31st storm event. And so we're grateful and always look to lend a hand because it takes all of us, especially in this day and age. So with that, just a reminder of our upcoming calendar of events. And if there are no further questions for myself or another member of our team, that concludes my report.
Anybody have questions? I guess we're good, Brian.
Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate your willingness to help out. I think we helped out with the wildfires. Now we got to help with the storm coming southeast. So we're kind of covering the entire country, but appreciate those gentlemen going forward and helping out our neighbors in Florida. So appreciate that very much. Let's go to comments by our commissioners. Commissioner Crowley.
No comment.
Commissioner Kaler.
None at this time.
Okay. And Pro Tem Allen.
I just want to wish my fellow commissioners safe travels as they go to the Kansas League of Kansas Municipalities Conference. I wasn't able to take off work, but I will hold the fort down here, and I know you guys will absorb all of the information. So best of luck to you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mayor,
Yes.
Commissioner Clayton is also online.
Oh, Commissioner Clayton, I'm sorry. Go right ahead if you have comments.
Thank you. None at this time.
Okay, I've been don't miss you out on that. Okay. And I just wanted to finish up by saying that we had our 50-year high school reunion this last weekend. I want to thank Tiffany Evans for giving everybody a tour of the OMA, Joe Cern at Eugene Field School, as well as Stella Tharp at the high school. And so it was great for the people from long way away. Some, in fact, came from Tampa, so they came back to their home, and now they're probably leaving again. But nonetheless, we had a great time, and I'm glad for all the participation with our community to give tours and meet with the people. And we had a lot of good comments about the way Ottawa looked from the people from out of town, so it's always good to hear too. So I appreciate that very much. Our announcements, October 10 through 12 will be the League of Kansas Municipalities in Wichita. We got October 16th, Franklin County Community Outlook. That's from 8 to 10 at Ottawa University. October 16th also is our City Commission meeting at 10 a.m., as well as October 23rd at 4 p.m. Nothing else to come before the City Commission meeting today. We are adjourned.